a failed mission. No, this is when Nephi gets strong. Behold, I told them, as the Lord liveth and as we live, we will not go down into our father in the wilderness until we've accomplished what we've been commanded to do by the Lord. So Nephi holds his ground. Now, it's likely, and Brant brings this out several times, that Nephi's brother knew nothing about Nephi's recent vision, and especially Yahweh's promise that he would rule over them. I mean, why bring that up to him? It would just cause more tension and problems within the family. So realistically, he probably kept this to himself. But he had had the vision and the revelation, so that he knew, he had the faith in his heart as well as his intellect, that Yahweh helps those accomplish his commands when he gives them. Nephi had this knowledge, his brothers technically didn't. So, now Nephi's oath. This is so remarkable. Nephi's oath is, as the Lord liveth, and as we live. Well, this is a powerful vow. Oath-making is a serious occasion in the ancient world, far more serious than we moderns care to believe. Agreements in the ancient world was primarily oral. And the Middle East cultures of Nephi's day were literate, although literacy was still the exception rather than the norm. So the oral culture was still the more prevalent mode of personal interaction among those people. And Dana Pike, whom I'm going to read to you here in a little while, has some things to say about their literacy also that's interesting. In particular, swearing an oath in the name of the Lord was of supreme consequence. Such an oath was most binding. By invoking the Lord's name, Nephi is binding himself with the strongest of oaths. It and his subsequent arguments convince his brothers. Now remember, they're skeptical. But when he swears an oath, he gets their attention. So it convinces them to accompany him on yet another attempt to go get those plates. Apparently, they did not make a similar vow as Nephi did, though. So this is kind of interesting. Now, I want to explain. Oh, and this is such a good analysis, though. But I want to talk a little bit more about these oaths, this idea of oaths in the ancient world, and especially as they come up in various places throughout the course of the Book of Mormon record. And I've looked up some things by several different fabulous LDS scholars that I want to share with you on the implications and the serious importance of this oath. The action of taking the oath, as well as the reaction from those who are given an oath, clearly shows the Book of Mormon is from the ancient world. This is nowhere near anything like 19th century America. Now, Nephi utters another oath once he has Zoram with him and he has gotten the brass plates and he's on his way out and his brothers run from him, and then he calls out to his brother. Then all of a sudden Zoram sees the situation and it terrifies him. Nephi does something that from our standards is just simply stupid. This is idiotic. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in our day, no. It's like nothing in 19th century America in Joseph Smith's day, but in the ancient world, this is precisely what happens. Nephi grabs Zoram, and he swears the same oath to Zoram that he swore to his brothers about going and getting the brass plates. He holds Zoram and he says, as the Lord liveth and as I live. See, Nibley discusses this oath of power in his book, An Approach to the Book of Mormon, on page 128. He says, Nephi, being a powerful fellow, held the terrified Zoram in a vice-like grip long enough to swear a solemn oath in his ear, as the Lord liveth and as I live. Now that's 1 Nephi 4:32. That he would not harm him if Zoram would listen to Nephi. And immediately Zoram calmed down. And then Nephi swore another oath to Zoram. He said, you will be a free man if you will join us in the desert. Therefore, if thou wilt go down into the wilderness to my father, thou shalt have place with us. And that's a beautiful Arabic expression, as Nibley points out in other of his writings. Thou shalt have place with us. Now, what astonishes us is the miraculous effect of Nephi's oath on Zoram. And, quite frankly, on his brothers. Because Laban had just failed, and he got threatened. He was accused falsely of being a robber, and he got threatened with his life. And then they failed again when they took all the goods, all of their wealth, to Laban. Laban even sent servants to try to kill him. But Nephi swore an oath, and the brothers listened. And these are merely conventional words. I mean, for us in this day and age, in our very materialistic fourth world, as the Hopis call our certain age right now, we lie all the time. The truth means nothing to us. In fact, Nibley in his Book of Mormon classes, I have all the tapes of that, and I listen to them all the time. In his classes, he mentions how one of the current business practices, according to the Wall Street Journal, is now you have to lie to get ahead, so therefore everybody's becoming a liar. That's our world. That's the world of Joseph Smith, but it wasn't Nephi's world. And as soon as Zoram made an oath unto us that he would tarry with us from that time forth, Nephi explicitly says, our fears did cease concerning him. So the reaction was both ways. Nephi swore an oath to Zoram, and he goes, oh, well, okay, good, cool. And then Zoram swore an oath to Nephi, and Nephi and Laman, Lemuel, Sam, and all those guys, they go, oh, whew, okay. Because Zoram promised he wouldn't go back to Jerusalem. And therefore they believed him, because he did it with an oath. The reactions of both parties make sense when one realizes that the oath is the one thing that is most sacred and inviolable among the desert people and their descendants. Hardly will an Arab break this oath, even if his life is in danger. For there is nothing stronger and nothing more sacred than the oath among the nomads. And even the city Arabs, it is to be exacted under specific conditions and special conditions. The taking of an oath is an holy thing, according to the Bedouin. Woe to him who swears falsely. His social standing will be damaged and his reputation ruined. And he'll technically be thrust out into the wilderness and die a horrible death in the wilderness all alone. He has the social structure, as Brant showed, and as I've already discussed, is of a group, is of either a family group or a social group or whatever. Swearing falsely eliminates you out of that group. It's pretty close to just, that's a death sentence, basically. You lose your life if you swear falsely in that ancient world. No one will receive his testimony, even if it is true, and he must also pay the money of a fine as well. But not any oath will do. Now, this is so remarkable. I mean, an oath is one thing, but the most binding and solemn of oath must be by the life of something or by the life of someone. And that is precisely what we see Nephi do on more than one occasion. And we see it also later on in the Book of Mormon in military situations that I'll share with you. Very interesting. The only oath more awful than by my life, or more commonly by the life of my head, is the Wa Hayat Allah, by the life of God, or as the Lord liveth. Nephi exactly gives that Arab oath. Isn't that fascinating? It's a beautiful, beautiful, the exact Arabic equivalent of the ancient Hebrew Hai Elohim, the Hebraic oath. It's the same thing. Nephi gives the Arabic oath. Fascinating. Most fascinating. So we see the only way that Nephi could possibly have pacified the struggling Zoram was to give him an oath, and the only way they could cease their fears concerning him is for him to return an oath, which is what he did. So that's a fascinating thing on oath. And then, of course, Zoram transferred his loyalty also from Laban to the group of the Nephites. Now, in the idea of righteous judgment, in Jack Welch's book, The Legal Cases in the Book of Mormon, an absolutely superb text, one of the very best. doing social justice, doing judicial justice. The idea is thou shalt not bring up a false report or rumor, leading the list of the prohibition in Exodus 23, thou shalt not raise a false report. This